Alright boys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Focke-Wulf 190 A-1. But before we really do that, I want to talk, probably slash rant briefly about the classification of plane that this vehicle is. Because you guys can see any number of Focke-Wulf 190 reviews, and it's not going to do you any good until you understand this concept. Because I can tell you the flight characteristics, the top speed, the armament, the flaps. I can talk to you about any number of things about these vehicles, and it's not going to do you any good until you understand this concept. I've heard this concept referred to as many different ways, many different types, and the most common phrase that I hear getting thrown around about this type of vehicle is support fighter, or support fighter, basically. But I think that's a mischaracterization of what these vehicles actually are and the role that they actually fulfill, and more so than that. And this is the part that's important about this video, and I think ultimately the skill set that you need to bring to this classification of vehicle is positional fighter. And that might not mean anything to you if you're a new War Thunder player, if you're a new player in War, in War Thunder Air RB. But if you've been around a while, you understand that positioning is incredibly important as part of your match. If you are out of position, then you are more than likely going to die. You're going to get shot down. You're going to get, defeated. Whatever you want to say. Whatever YouTube doesn't flag or censor me on. And this is a broad category of vehicle. I almost feel like there's three broad categories of vehicles in War Thunder Air RB. There are the dogfighter type, and that would be your Zeros, your Spitfires, your turn fighters, right? Those guys are less dependent upon positioning because their flight characteristics mean that they can dodge well enough or turn hard enough, or that's sort of their bread and butter. So if they find themselves in a bad position, assuming that a positional fighter sticks that fight, they are likely going to still be victorious. So when people in a positional fighter engage a dogfighter or a turn fighter, you are setting yourself up for failure. The Focke-Wulf 190 is a positional fighter. It has its strengths in the vertical specifically. It has very good flaps, which can turn it into a pretty decent turn fighter for a little bit. It's got good guns, and it's got good nose authority. Nose authority meaning that you can correct your shot very quickly. So when you're making that boom and zoom, you get guns on and you defeat your opponent. But ultimately, the skill set that I cannot teach you in a 10-minute YouTube video is positioning. You're going to have to learn that. And I think that has been my focus on some of these how to play videos, because most American props in this battle rating, which I've done several American prop videos, are positional fighters. So just a quick recap, kind of what I'm talking about, just to make sure it's 100% clear. There are turn fighters, dog fighters that have flight characteristics that allow them to evade or escape or defeat opponents that are in close. And then there are positional fighters, which require speed or altitude or positioning, and usually are faster than turn fighters, so that they can enter a position and exit a position to where the dogfight is in their advantage. And if you are in a positional fighter and you stick a fight and you give up your position or your ability to be able to dictate the fight, you need to end that fight quickly, or it's likely that the turn fighter will defeat you because of just the flight characteristics. Now, there's also sort of a third category here that I haven't really talked about yet that I think exists, and that is planes that will fit in both. And the one type of vehicle that I'm thinking about here is specifically like the Yak 3s. And that's kind of why I complain about the Yak 3s so much, is I feel like Gaijin's method of balancing Yak 3s is their historically low ammo count. But the ammo that they do have, the damage that those cannons do, has probably never been better. It used to be very inconsistent. Now I find that if you can just land one shell, it's pretty much game over for whoever gets hit. And then in the current meta of Air RB, it used to be that Yak 3s would be balanced because fights would be higher altitude. Very rarely at these BRs do I see fights happening above 3 to 5 kilometers. Like 5 kilometers is generally the ceiling of 98% of the fights that I'm in. Usually they start around 4,500 meters. They'll sometimes go down to 3,500 meters if it's a quick engagement. But then there's the big furball on the deck that you eventually will have to address. That will be the ground pounders and the people that started at maybe 3,500 meters and their dogfight took them all the way down to 500 meters. You're going to eventually have to address that group, and that's where the Yak 3s are, all the Yaks are incredibly strong. There are also other vehicles that are incredibly strong on the deck. It's just that Soviet vehicles historically, and I'm not saying that Gaijin is incorrect on here, the Soviet vehicles are historically very well tuned for low altitude fights, and then with their flight characteristics, that kind of puts them in their own category because they can be in position, they climb, they have speed, and yet they also retain enough dogfighting. It's like they're obviously no Spitfire, they're obviously no Zero, but they are the best they fit that nice hybrid. They really play well in both. They can climb, they can turn, they can retain energy, they can retain, vertical speed, horizontal speed. They're just really well performing vehicles that is only balanced by their ammo count. So I want you to take that sort of rant and keep that in mind as I talk about the Focke-Wulf 190. Because I'm going to show you several games here where I am using this vehicle sort of as a positional fighter where the flight characteristics are less important. I mean, obviously they are important, and I'll tell you when and where and how to make use of them. But ultimately, if you're out of position and you don't know how to play position in an Air RB match, you will think that the Focke-Wulf 190 kind of sucks. You'll think that the Mustang sucks. You'll think that the P-47 sucks. You'll think that the Corsairs kind of suck. You might even think that BF-109s are not very good, because those vehicles require good positioning. Now, the 109 requires altitude and vertical and all that. There's each one has its own little special snowflake ability and play style that you need to use. But for the 190, it doesn't really turn very well. You can make it turn, but it's a boom and zoom fighter. But that doesn't make it automatically a support fighter. It makes it a positional fighter. You need to dictate your engagements, and it doesn't mean that it's not like a good fighter. It just means that if you find that you struggle in the Focke-Wulf 190, you're probably playing it wrong. You're probably trying to play it like a Spitfire, or you're trying to play it like a Zero. And that's not to say that, like, everyone struggles with a specific vehicle type. There are some vehicles that I just can't make work for, like a P-61. I can't figure it out. Like, some people are amazing in the P-61. I've never really found it out. There are other vehicles that, like, Zeros don't really work for me. Maybe I just play too many vehicles that have decent speed. Like, I find that I can never catch anybody in a Zero, which is obviously its weakness. So don't think that you have to make every vehicle work for you, every plane work for you. Find the ones that do work for you and play them. But I will also try and tell you here how to use the 190. It's a positional fighter. It's a, quote, support fighter. It requires a little side climbing. It requires some altitude. It requires some booming and zooming. But when you get in a one-on-one dogfight engagement, as long as you are in position, you can generally come out victorious. If you are out of position, you can also come out victoriously, if you play it right or if the opponent plays it wrong. So I'll tell you the strengths and weaknesses, and we'll jump into it. I just think we need to establish those concepts before we get going. So here we go. Alright guys, so this has obviously not been a Focke-Wulf 190 A1 video. It's been a rant on positional fighters. I hope the background footage and the commentary, like the little comments that I'm going to put on there, have helped you with the Focke-Wulf 190. But let me know down in the comments if you want me to do a true, full Focke-Wulf 190 A1 review. I'll certainly come back to it. I had fun getting the footage that I got last night. That's what I threw up there. But I do think it's way more important for you to understand what a positional fighter is versus me trying to tell you how to play the Focke-Wulf 190. If you're still here, smash that like, subscribe button. Send this video to a buddy that just doesn't understand positional fighting and what it means to side climb, or why side climbing would be important, and why they can't make a Focke-Wulf 190 work for them, even after you've told them all about the flight characteristics and the armament and use the flaps. They got to understand what a positional fighter is. Send this video to that buddy. Thanks a lot, YouTube. We'll see you in the next one.